So, I matched with someone whose profile picture was clearly taken during the Clinton administration. Not the Hillary years, the Bill years. You could tell just by the hair gel alone. And here's the thing, he actually asked me if I was new to the internet.
Oh my God.
Which raises an interesting question, not about him, but about all of us. I just had to tackle the subject for my sanity. You see, because dating after 45 feels like you've been transported into a sci-fi movie where the basic plot has not changed. Same core human drama, attraction, rejection, the occasional humiliation, but now here's an AI matchmaker involved. People are floodlighting their childhood trauma on first dates. And apparently we're all supposed to have a niche passion that's more specific than I enjoy food and not dying.
Roger, Charli, we're ready to rock.
Let me bust a few myths right now, before you decide this episode isn't for you. Myth 1, men your age only want younger women. Well, the data says otherwise, and we're gonna get into why. Myth 2, you've lost your romantic edge. Nope. No, you haven't. You've actually gained something far more valuable, which sounds like a self-help cliche, but it isn't. So stick around. And myth 3, dating apps are for people who understand TikTok. Well, they're actually for people who understand disappointment, which you've got decades of practice with.
Self-destruction sequence initiated.
Here's what no one tells you. Dating after 40 or 45 isn't a downgrade. It's a different game entirely. And you might actually be better at it. Yep, I said it.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
There's this concept in psychology called socio-emotional selectivity theory. Don't let the academic jargon put you off. It's actually pretty straightforward and weirdly liberating. The theory says that when people perceive time as more limited, which typically happens as we age, they orient toward goals, activities, and relationships that are most emotionally meaningful and relevant to their own identity. Translation, you stop wasting time on bullshit. When you're 25, you've got all the time in the world to date someone who might grow on you or who's not terrible, I guess. You can spend 6 months in a relationship that's essentially a science experiment to see how long you can tolerate mediocrity. At 45, where your tolerance for nonsense has evaporated. Because as people age and perceive their time as more limited, they prioritize achieving emotional gratification. Not in a hedonistic necessarily type of way, but in a this matters or it doesn't kind of way. The research backs this up wonderfully. Across wildly diverse samples, Norwegians, Catholic nuns, African Americans, Chinese, European Americans, older adults report better control of their emotions and fewer negative emotions than younger adults. Think about that. You're not just older, you're emotionally sharper. You've accumulated what I call data points, a polite term for scars that taught you something. You can spot a red flag from 3 zip codes away. You know what you actually want, not what you're supposed to want. You understand that someone's taste in music matters less than whether they'll text you back within a reasonable time frame. This is a competitive advantage disguised as age. But here's where it gets interesting. This selectivity doesn't mean you become closed off. It means you become precise. Research shows that emotional closeness to significant others actually increases in adulthood, even as overall social interaction decreases. You're not interested in collecting acquaintances. You want the real thing. And that changes everything about how you date.
Brick, are you just looking at things in the office and saying that you love them?
I love lamp.
Do you really love the lamp, or are you just saying it because you saw it?
I love lamp. I love lamp.
Welcome to Dating in 2025, where the technology has evolved, but humans remain delightfully, maddeningly human. First, the robots are here. Not in a Terminator type of way, more like an overeager, matching ant who's read too much behavioral psychology. Apps are now combining human intuition with algorithmic precision. It's as if your grandmother and a spreadsheet had a baby. Woo! And honestly, for people over 45, this might not be so terrible. Remember, older participants tend to be more serious in their pursuit of online romance than younger ones. You're not swiping while waiting for your latte. You're actually looking for something. But then there's this new trend called floodlighting, and it's bananas. Floodlighting happens when people share too much information about themselves early on, not out of genuine vulnerability, but as a way to protect themselves from real vulnerability. So let me paint you this picture. You sit down for a first coffee. Within 15 minutes, your date has disclosed their divorce details, their therapist's name, 3 childhood traumas, and their opinion on their mother's parenting failures. You haven't even decided if you like their shoes yet. This trend, popularized on TikTok and originally coined by Brené Brown, involves overwhelming someone with vulnerability in an attempt to accelerate intimacy. And the logic is kind of almost there. If I tell you all my damage up front, we'll know right away if this can work. But that's not how intimacy works. Authentic connection takes time, and it is an investment. So think of it like this. Would you eat an entire wedding cake on a first date to prove you're committed to dessert? No. Well, I hope not. You'd have one slice like a reasonable human. Now, here's what's happening, though. People are so desperate to skip the uncertainty, the vulnerable, terrifying, will they like me phase, that they are front-loading all their emotional content as a test. If you can handle my worst on date 1, surely we're soulmates, right? Wrong. What you've actually done is create a false sense of intimacy before you've established if you even enjoy each other's company. Then there's the specificity problem. I like hiking. Used to be enough. Now you need to be into something specific. Vintage guitar restoration, competitive sourdough, glass blowing, obscure 1970s Japanese cinema. The bar for interesting has skyrocketed because everyone's competing for attention in a marketplace where there are 47 other people within a 10-mile radius who also like hiking. But here's the thing nobody's admitting. This actually works in your favor. Yep. See, let me show you how. By 45, you've had time to develop actual weird interests. You're not pretending to like hiking because it photographs well. You genuinely have opinions about fountain pens or the correct way to make ratatouille or the best translation of Dostoevsky. You've become specific through years of just living your life. The 28-year-olds are scrambling to manufacture quirky hobbies. You already have them. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the algorithm, the myth that older men universally want younger women and you're invisible after 40. Well, the data is by far more interesting than that.
What the hell are you talking about?
A recent study of over 6,000 middle-aged adults on blind dates found that both men and women showed a small bias toward younger partners in blind date settings. Notice, both men and women, and small bias. This isn't the massive age gap preference we've been culturally told to expect. What's really happening is much more nuanced. Yes, when you ask people on questionnaires what they prefer, men often say they want younger partners. But what people say they want and what they actually choose are often completely different things. It's like saying you want someone who loves adventure when what you really want is someone who will watch murder documentaries with you on a Tuesday night. And here's the kicker. Acceptance of a broader age range actually increases with age. The older you get, the less age itself matters compared to other factors, like shared values, emotional availability, whether they laugh at your jokes.
Nani?
The real question isn't, will anyone want me at my age? It is more of, do I still want to play this game? And if so, how do I play it better than I did at 25? Now, here's what people need to talk about more. The thing that makes all of this, the AI, the floodlighting, the niche interests, actually much more navigable, you know who you are. Not theoretically, not in a vision board kind of way. You know. You just know what kind of morning person you are. You know how you handle conflict. You know which of your flaws are charming and which are genuinely problematic. You know what you're willing to compromise and what you're not. At 25, you're dating to figure out who you are. At 45, you're dating to find someone who fits with who you've become. That's not settling, guys. That's called precision. And the beautiful thing, the people worth dating at this age have also figured this out. They're not projects, they're not maybes, they're actual humans with their own data points, looking for someone who'll appreciate both their vintage guitar collection and their annoying habit of loading the dishwasher wrong. The sci-fi movie you're in, the one with the weird technology and the floating furniture, you're not the confused protagonist anymore. You're the character who's been here before, who knows how the story usually goes, who can spot the plot twists 3 scenes away. You're the one everyone underestimates until they realize you're the only one who actually knows what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Let's talk about the things nobody mentions in the aspirational love at any age articles. First, the brutal math. Among adults 45 and older, 22% of men and 37% of women are divorced, separated, or widowed. I think the number is much higher than that, but that's what we know out of research. Which sounds promising until you realize most of your peers aren't actually married. They paired off decades ago and they're not coming back. The single people who remain, well, they're single for reasons. Sometimes good reasons. They prioritized career, they loved their independence, they had terrible luck, and sometimes less good reasons. They're commitment phobic, emotionally unavailable, or still married to their ex-wife in every way except legally.
Sneaky turtle.
You're not fishing in a lake anymore. You're actually fishing in a damn puddle. And half the fish are confused about why they're in the puddle. Then there's the trust issue. Nearly 3/4 of older singles say their own trust issues keep them from dating, while 59% express anxiety about meeting strangers or using online platforms. And this makes sense. By 45, you've been burnt, maybe multiple times, maybe spectacularly. You've experienced betrayal, disappointment, the slow death of love through 1,000 tiny neglects. Divorced and widowed singles lean more toward not dating at the moment, 56% and 74% respectively. It's not that you're damaged. It's just that you're informed. But here's the trap. That informed wariness can calcify into permanent defensiveness. You become so good at protecting yourself that nobody can get close enough to actually know who you are. You've built a fortress, and you're surprised nobody's knocking at the door. But you've also filled the moat with alligators and removed the drawbridge. Now, let's address the awkward part. Bodies change. Not in an inspirational bodies are beautiful at every age way. That's true, but it's not the whole story. The whole story is that energy levels shift. Health concerns multiply. Some people are caregiving for aging parents. Some are navigating their own medical situations. Some people's kids are finally grown and out of the house. Others are still dealing with custody arrangements or adult children who've boomeranged back. Life stage mismatches become real obstacles. You want to travel, they're saving for retirement, you're sexually active and adventurous, they're on medications that complicate intimacy, You're free for the first time in decades, and they're exhausted from caregiving. None of these are deal breakers individually, but together, they kind of narrow the already narrow field even further. And then there's a technology problem. Bio baiting, overselling or exaggerating your dating app bio to make yourself appear more interesting than you are in reality. CEO of what, for God's sake? It's the latest exhausting trend. People claim to love skiing, hiking, or cooking when those activities are rare indulgences at best. So you show up to meet someone who presented themselves as an adventurous chef who loves spontaneous weekend ski trips, and then you discovered they microwaved a lean cuisine 3 days ago and haven't seen a mountain since 2017. Now add to this ghosting, endless chatting that never converts to meeting, people who are just seeing what's out there, translation, killing time, and people who are technically separated but emotionally still married, people who are looking for something casual, translation, free therapy with occasional sex. By the time you've waded through all of this, you're not just fatigued. You're suspicious, and suspicion kills the possibility of connection before it even starts. But here's the most interesting tension, the one that doesn't even get enough attention. Many people at this age have discovered they actually like being single. As one 60-year-old divorcee put it,
I discovered what it's like to be my own top priority, and I'm never going back.
You've built a life. You have routines, friendships, hobbies, financial independence, space that's arranged exactly how you want it. You don't have to negotiate about the thermostat or defend your spending or explain why you want to spend Sunday alone reading instead of at some nephew's baptism. And then you meet someone interesting, and suddenly you're facing the possibility of disrupting all of that carefully constructed autonomy. Some people resist cohabitation or marriage later in life specifically because they've tasted freedom and they're just not willing to give it up. But they still crave companionship, intimacy, connection. They want partnership without codependence, closeness without claustrophobia. So how do you date someone seriously while maintaining the independence you fought for? That's not a riddle with an easy answer. And the cultural scripts, move in together, get married, merge your lives, don't account for people who've already had that and are looking for something different this time.
You can't say no.
All right, enough with the Debbie Downer problems. Let's talk about what actually works when you're playing this game with decades of experience and limited patience for nonsense. Now, this is harder than it sounds. Most people think they know what they want. Then they start listing qualities that sound like they're describing a golden retriever. Okay, loyal, funny, active, good with family. But what do you really want? Do you want someone who'll travel with you or someone who's happy to let you travel while they hold down the fort? Be honest. Do you want daily texting or comfortable silence? Do you want to eventually live together or maintain separate spaces? Do you want someone who challenges you or someone who soothes you? Do you want an equal partner in all things or someone who complements your weaknesses? You see, there is no right answer, but there are your answers. And until you know them specifically, not theoretically, not aspirationally, but specifically, you're going to keep matching with people who are great on paper, but absolutely wrong in practice. The societal script says you should want a partner who'll be your everything, but maybe you don't. Maybe you just want someone who's your weekend everything and your weekday nothing. Maybe you want passion without cohabitation. Maybe you want companionship without romance. Figure it out before you start. It really reduces mismatches, saves time, and prevents you from trying to force something that was never going to fit anyway. Now, there's something called layered dating where you start light and you build slow. It is kind of the opposite of floodlighting. You start with low stakes. Friends, companions, people who do activities with, no pressure, no declarations, no where is this going conversation in week 3. You let intimacy grow organically, the way it does when you're not forcing it. You go to a concert together, try that new restaurant, take a pottery class, see if you enjoy their company before you start imagining your lives merged. This approach does two things. It removes the interview style pressure of traditional dating, which is, by the way, seriously exhausting. And it allows you to assess compatibility in real situations rather than artificial coffee date performances. You are not additioning, you're coexisting and seeing what emerges. The app thing, it works for some people, but for many, it's a numbers game that favors the wrong kind of persistence. Instead, join interested-based communities, real ones. Meetups, classes, book clubs, volunteer organizations, hiking groups, cooking workshops, film societies. Yes, this is the advice your mother would give you. Your mother was right, dude. Because when you meet someone in the context of shared interests, you're kind of already got the alignment on something that matters. You're not guessing if they actually like hiking based on 3 photos and a bio. You're watching them hike. You're seeing how they interact with others, how they handle difficulty, whether they're kind to the person who's struggling on the trail. Context reveals character in a way swiping never can.
Excuse you.
Vulnerability is essential, but strategic vulnerability means waiting until emotional safety exists before you unpack your entire history. Early dates are for discovering if you like each other. Middle dates are for exploring compatibility, and later dates are for revealing complexity. Don't lead with your divorce story, for the love of God, your therapy breakthroughs, or your childhood wounds. Lead with your curiosity, your humor, your present tense self. Let the depth come later, when trust has been earned on both sides. And when you do share to connect, not to test. Don't weaponize vulnerability as a filtering mechanism. That's what floodlighting is. It's emotional hazing disguised as honesty. Now, and this is the part you probably hate from me, but I've got to say it. You've got to be the person you'd want to date. This is not self-help nonsense. It is basic logic. If you want someone who's curious, engaged, funny, and alive, well, you better be that. If you want someone who's passionate about things and has passions, if you want someone who's emotionally healthy, oh, what the hell? Work on your own emotional health. You're not trying to attract everyone. You're trying to attract equals, and equals recognize each other. Sharpen your own life. Read interesting books, have opinions, develop skills. Listen to my podcast. Be funny, be kind, be the version of yourself you'd enjoy spending time with. Because the truth is, desperate, bored, or bitter people attract other desperate, bored, or bitter people. Energy is contagious.
Damn you!
You have learned things. Now use them. If someone reminds you of your ex, believe that information. If they do something early on that bothers you, pay attention. If your gut says something is off, don't talk yourself out of it because they seem perfect on paper. You're not 25 anymore. You're not supposed to give everyone a chance. Ignoring warning signs or convince yourself that red flags are just quirks, that's stupid. At this age, patterns are predictive. If someone can't communicate clearly in the first month, they won't suddenly develop excellent communication skills in month 6. Trust me. If they're emotionally unavailable now, they'll be emotionally unavailable later. But by then, you will be attached. Your instincts are data. For the love of God, respect them. Don't wait 6 months to discover you have incompatible life goals. Talk about the real things early. Values, finances, health, desire for travel, thoughts on family, feelings about living arrangements, sexual compatibility, political leanings, religious beliefs, lifestyle preferences, and whether you're going to split that damn bill or not. If not on the first date, definitely before you're emotionally invested. This isn't unromantic. It is efficient. And at this age, you don't have margin for error. You don't have a decade to waste on someone whose long-term vision doesn't match yours. It's not that you need someone who agrees with you on everything. It's that you need someone who can navigate disagreement without contempt, whose core values align with yours, and who wants a similar kind of life. Figure that out early, before you're in love, because love clouds judgment, and clouded judgment leads to compromise you're going to later on resent. Have we not learned that? Dating at 45 is not a fast process. The pool is smaller, the stakes are higher, the compatibility requirements are much more specific. But this is not a bug, it's a feature. You're not looking for just anyone, you're looking for the right one, and that takes longer when you actually know what right means. There's less margin for naivete, less room for maybe this will work out, and less tolerance for hoping someone will change. That's not pessimism. That's realism earned through experience. And that's exactly what makes you better at this than you were at 25. You're not throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. You're making considered choices with full knowledge of the consequences. You're not naive. You're precise. And precision, though slower, has a much higher success rate. All right, now before we wrap up, let's kill a few myths that are probably rattling around in your head right now. Myth 1. Men over 45 always want much younger women. Well, the research shows preference for youth is small and symmetrical, meaning both men and women show a slight bias toward younger partners in blind date settings. It's not the massive gender gap we've been culturally conditioned to believe. And here's what's even more interesting. Stated preferences, what people say they want on questionnaires, don't predict actual choices. Men might claim they want someone in their 30s, but when it comes to actual dating behavior, compatibility factors, shared interests, values, human, and chemistry matter far more than age. The narrative that older men universally reject age-appropriate women, it's mostly mythology reinforced by celebrity examples and our own insecurities. The reality is far more nuanced and far more optimistic. Myth 2. You lose your romantic capacity after 45. Well, emotional depth, sexual satisfaction, and romantic connection can continue or even intensify, according to research, after 45. That research shows that older women dating younger men report the highest sexual satisfaction of any age gap pairing, which suggests it's not age that kills sexuality. It's narrow assumptions about what sexuality should look like. Studies of adults over 60 show that many maintain active, satisfying sex lives well into later adulthood. The difference isn't capacity, it's the willingness to adapt, communicate, and prioritize intimacy in ways that work for your actual body and life, not some idealized version from 20 years ago. You do not lose romantic capacity. You lose patience for romance that doesn't actually satisfy you. That's not a loss, honey. That's an upgrade. Myth 3. Dating is just too exhausting now. The trade-off is actually more precise. Less chasing and more intention. Yes, it's exhausting if you approach it like you did at 25, swiping constantly, saying yes to everyone, trying to manufacture chemistry where it doesn't even exist, ignoring red flags out of loneliness or hope. But if you approach it with clarity and boundaries, knowing what you want, being selective, moving slowly, trusting your instincts, it's not exhausting. It's actually efficient. You're not trying to date everyone. You're trying to find the one person who makes the effort worthwhile. And that requires less energy than you think once you stop wasting energy on people who were never going to fit. The exhaustion isn't from dating itself. It's from dating without strategy, clarity, or self-respect.
We ride the currents of the unknown tide.
Okay, so as usual, here's your assignment for today. Not homework, assignment. Because if you're listening to a podcast about dating over 45, you are clearly capable of following instructions without needing gold stars.
Unusual practice, breaking the mold.
So challenge 1. I want you to identify one hobby or interest you'll lean into this week. Not for dating, but for you. You see, this isn't about making yourself more attractive to potential partners. It's about becoming more interesting to yourself. Because the brutal truth is that bored people are boring people. And if you're bored with your own life, why would anyone else find it compelling? Pick something, anything. Resurrect that guitar that's been gathering dust. Try that cooking class you keep thinking about. Join a book club. Learn to identify birds. Take a pottery wheel for a spin. Start sketching again and continue listening to unusual practice. The point isn't to become excellent at something. The point is to care about something. To have a thing you do that lights you up, even ever so slightly. Because that energy, you see, that aliveness is what makes people magnetic at any age.
Unusual practice, breaking the mold.
Challenge 2. Post or update a profile that shows your true quirk, not the generic version. Delete the I love to laugh and I enjoy hiking. Please, no offense, guys, but seriously, let's move on from there. Everyone loves to laugh. Psychopaths love to laugh. And unless you're training for an ultra marathon, your relationship with hiking is probably casual at best. Instead, tell the truth. The weird truth.
I can identify most dog breeds from 50 feet away, and I'm insufferable about it.
Specificity. Specificity is interesting. Quirk is memorable. Generic is invisible. Challenge 3. Ask someone on a curiosity date. A coffee or a walk, 20 minutes max. Zero pressure. Not a romantic prospect necessarily, just someone interesting. Someone you met at that meetup, or the friend of a friend, or the person you keep running into at the bookstore who has good taste in novels. 20 minutes, guys. No agenda. No where is this going energy. Just, I find you interesting, let's grab a cup of coffee. Because here's the thing, dating doesn't have to be this high stakes all or nothing audition. It can just be curiosity. Like, I'd like to get to know you better. That's it. That's it. That's the whole pitch. Yep, you stop right there. I'd like to get to know you better. And if nothing romantic develops, well, you've still expanded your world by one interesting person. That is not a failure. That's a life well lived. So, one hobby for you, one honest profile update, and one curiosity date. 3 small actions that might change everything. Or might change nothing, but you'll have a better week anyway. So here's what I want you to remember from this. Dating over 45 is less about finding someone and more about filtering with precision. You're not casting a wide net and hoping for the best. You're operating with sharper criteria, more self-awareness, and if you're doing it right, braver truth-telling than you ever imagined in your 20s, with a much more open mind.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
You're not at a disadvantage. You're playing a completely different game, one that rewards exactly the skills you spent decades developing. Discernment, emotional intelligence, pattern recognition, the ability to walk away from what does not serve you. The pool is smaller, but your aim is better. The stakes feel higher, but your judgment is sharper. The tech is confusing, but your instincts are honed. You've got decades of data on what doesn't work. That is not baggage, that's research. Now bloody well use it. And if this resonated, if any of this landed, do me a favor. Share this with one person who needs to hear it. Not in a fix yourself type of way, but more in a you're not alone in this kind of way. Because the thing about dating after 45 is that everyone feels like they're the only one struggling with it, when actually, we're all figuring this crap out together. If you've made it this far, and you're that mature, please do not ghost me. Hit follow or subscribe so the next episode finds you, not the other way around. And a comment would be greatly appreciated to help me improve. This is not a one-way broadcast. This is a conversation I'm trying to have with you. And I actually want to know what you're dealing with and how your story grows. Email me at practicecharli@gmail.com. All the info is found under the description of this podcast. Until next time, be specific, be curious, be brave enough to show up as yourself. And remember, you're exactly at the right age to finally do it well.
Ta-da! Mom, somebody just followed me.
This is the most unusual practice. Rethink what you think you know with Charlie.